to share my screen. So could you please confirm if you can see my screen?
Yes, teacher.
Okay. Welcome to our second web conference of the course International Business Management. As you may know, my name is Angela Piedad Suarez Torres. I'm the course director. And today we're going to talk more about competition in business and international business. For those who don't know me, I am professional in international relations from Universidad del Rosario. I'm specialized on European studies from the same university, and I have a master's degree in international politics from the University of Newcastle in the United Kingdom. Our class plan for today, we're going to have the presentation that I already. Now we're going to talk about competitive environment, then about some characteristics, types of competitive environments, and talking about the types and strategies, we're going to see some examples. At the end, we're going to have feedback. During the session, if you have any question, if you want to say something, you're welcome to participate, okay? This is not just one-way communication. The idea is that you understand what I'm saying and that you can share also your ideas about the subject that we're talking about today. Well, first of all, what's the meaning of competitive environment? I'm sure that most of you know or understand what means competitive environment. We're just going to go through a simple definition. A competitive environment refers to the dynamic system in which businesses operate and compete against one another. It encompasses various external factors that influence a company's ability to compete effectively, such as market structure, number of competitors, and customer preferences. I'm sure that as you are in a very advanced level of your program on international business, I'm sure that you know that competitiveness is very important when we're talking about international business. That when we're thinking about working on international business for any type of company, company for goods or services, we really need to know that the success of the business is not only related to the quality of the product that we're selling or the service, but also we have to consider the environment, the context where we're going to develop the business. Because there are some elements, external factors that are going to determine the successful of the business. So we always have to look at that environment. In this case, we define that as the competitive environment, okay? And is it clear how I speak for you? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay. If you have any question, just let me know, okay? There are some key characteristics about this competitive environment. I can see what happened with my... Well, direct competitors talks about companies offering different products or services, like Pepsi versus Coca-Cola, offering the same products or similar products. In this environment, when we're learning and study the environment, the market where we're going to put our product, to offer our product or our service, we really need to know what type of competitors we're going to have. It depends on the characteristics of our product or service. So we have the direct competitors or the indirect competitors. The direct competitors, in the case of sodas, are companies that are offering the same product or service In this case, in this example, we have Pepsi versus Coca-Cola. Is almost the same product. The customer is going to say it's not the same because, for example, some of you prefer Coca-Cola, some of you prefer Pepsi. But if we see like the general idea of the product, you can, if you go to buy Coca-Cola, you're very thirsty, and they don't sell Coca-Cola, but they sell Pepsi, you have that option to choose. Like if you want Pepsi instead of Coca-Cola, or if you want to try something else that is going to be more different. So in this case, the product is almost the same thing. I'm sure that if you like Coca-Cola, you're going to say, no, Coca-Cola is not the same as Pepsi, but the idea is those are direct competitors. So the characteristics of the product are quite similar. Of course, there are differences that make them competitive in the market, but are almost the same product. When we talk about indirect competitors, the businesses providing substitute products. In this case, a pizza is not the same thing as a sandwich. So the indirect competitors is more related with the substitute products. In this case, if we go back to Pepsi and Coca-Cola, we're not going to talk about an option. If we're going to drink Coca-Cola and they don't have, maybe they offer another soda with different characteristics, maybe sweeter, maybe the color is different. So it's going to be quite, or another substitute product of the soda is going to be water. In some cases, it could be sparkling water, sparkling flavored water, or maybe it depends the culture, can be wine or another type of drinks that you may have. In this example, we have pizza versus sandwiches. So we're going to talk in this case of fast food. So a substitute product for a pizza might be a sandwich, a hamburger, salchipapa in our region. So we have to decide to look at the market that we're facing and to decide what type of competitors do we have, which are considered the direct competitors and which are considered the indirect competitors. Because depending on that, we have to look at the characteristics of those products and how are we going to be different from the others products or services offered in the market. Types of competitive environments in international business. In this case, we have 4. I'm sure that you have a general idea. The first one talks about pure competition. Pure competition is characterized by many firms offering identical products with no market power to influence prices. Prices are determined by supply and demand. In international markets, this often applies to commodity goods like agricultural products or raw materials, where global suppliers compete on price and efficiency. The best example here is maybe when you go to the supermarket to buy some groceries, to buy some fruit and some vegetables. Maybe when you go to the marketplace in your town, and then you're going to see the same tomatoes from one place to another, the same bananas. But the difference, the pure competition, is maybe you're going to look at the quality of the product, the characteristics that you can see on the product, that you can feel when you touch it, and also the price. Excuse me. So the pure competition is more related with agricultural products or raw materials. Raw materials, when, for example, you go to buy some flour to bake, because maybe you have a bakery and then you're going to have to buy some flour, some wheat flour. So you have to decide between like the same product with different labels, almost the same characteristics, but there are differences on the price that depends maybe on the offer, the quality of the product, the physical characteristics that you can see. So this one refers to the pure competition that you can find in the market. The second type of competitive environment is related with monopolistic competition. Monopolistic competition features many firms offering differentiated products with a unique features or brand. Businesses set prices independently, but face competition from substitutes. In international context, this is a common in consumer goods. For example, smartphones, fast food. For example, when we have brands like Apple or McDonald's, they emphasize on the product differentiation and marketing to attract global customers. So when we talk about the smartphones, there are some special characteristics that makes you decide what type of smartphone are you going to buy. When we think about Apple has a special way of communicate with the customers, the marketing is different. The idea of the product makes you feel like different. So this is the type of products and companies that we can see in a monopolistic competition. The businesses, they're going to set prices. Excuse me just a second. Excuse me. Well, we were talking about the monopolistic competition, and the examples that I was explaining to you were more related with smartphones and fast food. Examples such as Apple and McDonald's that they have a very high investment on marketing. The the image that they have is really big. The market that they work with um, attracts like a specific type of population and customers. So it is very important what they do when we think on the marketing that they manage. So this makes them part of this monopolistic competition. The third type is related with oligopoly. Oligopoly uh, means that there is a small group of dominant firms that control the market. They often collaborate to stabilize price or output. Some examples in this case are Google and Amazon or energy conglomerates, where market power is concentrated among a few players. Another example is Boeing, for example, the company that builds the Boeing airplanes, which there are not many companies in the world that do that, that build that type of airplanes. In the case of Google and Amazon, we can see that there are just few businesses doing the same activity in the market. The influence that has Amazon in the world, maybe we can compare with some few, but they don't have the same impact on the global sphere. Because if we think in Colombia, we have Mercado Libre. eBay is more related with Europe. But even if you're anywhere in the world you can buy something through Amazon. So Amazon is like the huge company, and in this case, it's an oligopoly. And the last type of competitive environment is monopoly. Monopoly is related to a single firm that dominates the market with no close substitutes. Often due to legal barriers or exclusive resources, in international business, monopolies are rare, but may exist in regulated sectors like utilities, for example, state-owned energy providers, or patent technologies. So, with the development of globalization, we can see some examples. For example, when we were talking about Boeing, Boeing is an example of maybe starting as a monopoly, but maybe with the time, there are some companies that start to build different types of airplanes, maybe with different characteristics, but try to compete in the market with those huge companies. Amazon, we may think that at the beginning it used to be a monopoly because it was the big one all around the world. But with the time, we can see that some other platforms like AliExpress, Alibaba, eBay, they're developing and trying to get to different places in the world, not just to restrict their market to the region, but try to go through um, through the frontiers and get to other places. So the monopoly with the process of globalization is going maybe down. It's more difficult to find monopoly examples, or maybe just in the case of the state-owned companies with the special market, with a specific market. There are some other elements that are important to consider in this competitive environment, um, that maybe are not directly related with the market, but they are very important to consider when we're thinking about how competitive the environment might be. If we're going to find many competitors on the market, if it's going to be easy to get into that market. So there are three elements that we have to consider. The first one is the economic and political factors of the country. The competitive environments are going to vary by country due to the GDP, the gross domestic product, the infrastructure, and the regulatory policies. Um, in the first web conference, I was talking about some of these elements. Um, when we get into, if we are offering, for example, a good, maybe if we want to sell something like avocados, maybe we have to think about the costs of logistics when we think about infrastructure. If we think about importing a product here in Colombia, sorry, we have to consider how high is the cost of logistics when we get the product that gets in a port, maybe in the Caribbean, in Barranquilla, Santa Marta, Cartagena, and how high is the cost to get that product from the coast to the center of the country if we're going to sell it, for example, in Bogota. Because sometimes it depends on the type of the product. We cannot transport it by air because most of the times it's more expensive, and we have to use um, the trucks. And in Colombia, it's one element that makes the products to get very expensive when we have to consider the logistics in the country. How high is the cost to transport products from Cartagena, Barranquilla, Santa Marta, Buenaventura to Bogota and the other main cities? So those are elements that are very important because those costs are going to affect the competitiveness of our product when we think about the price to the customer, because everything goes to the customer. And regulatory policies, we have to analyze what type of policies in those countries where we want to get into the market, into their markets, what's the policy for imports, what's the policy for imports, the kind of product that we have, if they have specific policies and regulations about the quality, about the materials that we use to produce it, about the people that works to make those products in the process of elaboration. So there are many things that we have to consider. And in economy, we also have to analyze the GDP. It means the capacity of buying that the people have, the customer has. It's going to be different. It depends on the size of the economy. So it depends if we have a luxury element of if we have or if we have a basic element of consumption. So those are the elements that we have to consider about the quality of our product and how are we going to put it and to make it competitive in the market where we're going to be. The second element additional that we're going to consider is the technological innovation because it means that we have to think about adaptability to local technology standards and consumer preferences is critical for success. For example, if we have an electronic device, we have to consider how the electricity works in the country because when we travel for something very simple that we see is that when we're going to charge our phone or the laptop, uh, we cannot connect to the electricity with the same device that we use in our country because sometimes it's going to change. It's not going to be the same. So, for example, in our country, we use those with two planes things to connect. But in some other countries, there are three. In some other countries, there are round. So those simple elements we have to consider if we're thinking about in something related with technology, with energy, and how it's going to work in other places. So those are like simple elements that sometimes we may not consider that we have to think about it. The capacity of the electricity. So what the people is used to buy and what are we offering. If our technology is like an old technology, if the other country is like a very developed in technology and our product is not with those higher standards, or in the other way around, maybe we're very developed and then we go to the other country and they don't have the technology to explode all the potential that our product has. For example, the 5G technology of the mobile phones. In our country a few years ago, maybe 5G was like uh, very normal in some developed countries, but in our country wasn't that developed and the network didn't have the capacity to use that that quality. Excuse me for a second. I'm really sorry. So I was talking about, oh, sorry, the technological innovation. And in the case of the 5G technology that we have now, some years ago, maybe 5G technology for the mobile phones were very common in some other countries. But when the technology came to Colombia, we didn't have like the network to use the all the tools that the 5G technology um, had in the devices. So we had to wait until the network was improved, the quality, and finally we got the 5G. So at the beginning was like, yeah, your mobile phone may say 5G, but in reality the network only has 4G. So those are the elements that we have to consider when we are getting into a new market and we consider the technological innovation. In the third element, we have the strategic differentiation. The companies must leverage unique value propositions, for example, pricing and sustainability, to stand out in global markets. An example is the case of automobile manufacturers that operate in a monopolistically competitive environment globally, competing through brand loyalty and product features, while agricultural exporters face pure competition based on price and supply chains. What's the difference between the automobile manufacturers and the agricultural exporters? Just give me a second, I'll be back in 2 minutes. Well, we were talking about the strategic differentiation, and in this case, there is a difference between the automobile manufacturers and agricultural exporters. In the automobile manufacturers, they are more like a monopolistic competitive environment globally, and we can see that they compete with different elements. One of them is the brand loyalty, but the other one that we can see very common is the product features. So when we're going to buy a car, there are so many elements of differentiation that they have that you really have you need to have a clear idea of what you want to buy, because if you go from one company to another, they're going to offer you so many different options in a car that you can be like crazy deciding which one, because today is more about technology, sophistication, the quality of the different elements that the car has, the different utilities that they have, how comfortable you feel. Uh, So there are so many things, features, that's the idea in the competition on the car, on the automobile manufacturers. But when we go to the agricultural exporters, the competition is like what we were saying at the beginning, is the pure competition, because it's based on the price and the supply chains. So the supply chain is going to decide to change, maybe make changes about the price and maybe the quality, because depending on the supply chain, maybe the product is going to have better characteristics, very characteristic as compared to other that may have in the supply chain some problems of logistics, and is going to vary the quality of the product in this process when we talk agricultural exporters. For example, if we talk about fruits or veggies. So those are the elements that we have to consider when we think and when we talk about the types of competitive environments. I would like to know if you have um, any question about what I was saying. Maybe if you want to say something, if you have an example, I would like to hear you. Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you have any doubts? Are you still there? Well, I hope that you
Sure.
understand what I'm saying. Yes? Hello? Is anybody there? Can you hear me?
Yes, tutor. Here we go. The info
Uh,
is clear.
Continue? Okay. Yeah, I'm worried because I see 3 people connected, but nobody saying anything. I'm worried.
Okay, teacher.
If you have something to say, feel free. There are some factors that are going to influence the competitive environment. In this case, we can see 4 important elements. The number of sellers, it means the size of the market that we are going to get in. So we have to have a clear idea if the competition is a big competition in that market, or if there are just few competitors in that market. That's an element that we have to consider, and because that's going to influence the possibilities that we have to be successful in that market. If we can see that it's a very high competitive environment, we really need to be prepared and to learn so many things about the other competitors, because they're going, of course, if we already have a place in that market, every single competitor is going to have a differentiation of the product from the others. So we have to make also differentiate our product from the others, and to get a space into that market, to get a place, to get some customers that are going to say, oh, I like that new product because gives me something different, because offers me something that I wanted and I couldn't find in the other ones. So that's very important to have in consideration the number of sellers that we're going to find in that market. The second element is the product features. As I was talking before about the automobilistic manufacturers, the characteristics of our products are very important to have to get that place in the market. So we have to show to the customer how different is our product and how our product is going to offer something different, but is going to answer the needs of the customer. So for that reason, we have to learn so many things about the market, the type of the consumer, the preferences of the consumer, what the consumer really needs, what's looking for, what they want, and what is the lack on the market from our product, or the place that we're going to get. So what do they lack, and if we have the capacity to offer that element of differentiation. The third one is the barriers to entry. I was talking about the political factors and the regulatory policies before, because that's a very important element that we have to consider, the barriers to entry. For example, there are some children toys made of wood that we can export. But if we're going to export those products to the European Union, um, they have some barriers about the type of paint that we use. There are some paints that have some ingredients that are not allowed for children, because they may have the possibility to give them some allergies, or it's poisonous. So we have to look at that, because maybe our product, we have a very nice toy made of natural wood, for children, very attractive, very nice, with so many beautiful details and very well done. And then when we're thinking about exporting, they're going to say no, because you cannot get that product into the market because the type of paint that you use is not allowed in the country. And then we're going to lose like the whole process, the whole negotiation process. We're going to be really bad, because maybe we had to bring some products to the country, and now we don't have the possibility to get into the market, into the country. So those barriers to entry are very different from country to country, from economic sector to another. So those are very important regulatory policies that we have to look at, to read about, and to learn, and to ask about, because sometimes we don't understand and we have to look for further information to be sure that we're not going to have problems in the process. And finally, a very important element is the price discovery. We also have to look at all the elements that are going to be involved in the price that we're going to get to the customer, but also we have to know so many other factors that are going to influence that price. We're not going to think about an hypothetical price, and there, when we're trying to get the product to the customer, we're going to get in very high costs of logistics, and that we didn't consider. So the price is going to be very high, and it's not going to be affordable for the customer. So those are elements that maybe you see, oh yes, of course we have to look at that, but it's not just that easy. You have to really learn about number of sellers, product features, barriers to entry, price discovery, because those elements are very, very important for you to be competitive in the new market where you want to get your product or your service. And finally, we're talking about the competitive strategies in international business. We have, well, 3, 6, 7 competitive strategies in international business that we really have to consider when we're thinking about, sorry, when we're thinking about being part of international business with a product or a service? Well, the first strategy is related or is called the global standardization strategy. The global standardization strategy focuses on achieving economies of scale by offering standardized products across international markets. It is ideal when cost reduction pressures are high and local responsiveness is minimal. Products are uniform worldwide, reducing production cost. So we're going what they want to do, what the company wants to do is just to become an economy of scale, and it's going to just offer an standardized product, which is the case maybe in specific elements of technology. For example, Intel and Texas Instruments, they produce semiconductors with universal standards. They cater to global industrial needs. So that's a product that is needed, that they design it with is standardized for global use. So they don't care very much about the marketing or the different features that it has, no, because it's a product that is needed for maybe for cars or maybe for phones, for any electronic device, and they already have their customers. So in this case, this is just a standardized product that is going to be offered worldwide and is going to be useful worldwide. The second one talks about localization strategy. Localization strategy emphasizes adapting products and marketing to meet local preferences and cultural differences. This strategy is suitable when local responsiveness is critical, even if it increases cost due to customization. An example of this, again, McDonald's. McDonald's had to customize its menu in India by offering vegetarian options and avoiding beef due to cultural sensitiveness. In this case, for example, Starbucks, when they got into Chinese market, they have to also customize its menu because Chinese people is used to drink more tea than coffee. They also drink coffee, but they are more related with drinking tea. So they have to offer also a portfolio with different types of tea to make the people get into to be customers of them. They offer coffee, but also they offer a range of teas for get more customers in the country because it's more suitable for them. The third one talks about transnational strategy. In this approach, it's combined the benefits of global efficiency with local responsiveness, aiming to balance standardization and customization. The company centralized the decision making while allowing subsidiaries to adapt to local markets. For example, this global efficiency with local responsiveness, Coca-Cola is an example because Coca-Cola maintains a global brand, but they just adjust the flavors and marketing strategies based on the regional tastes. If you had the chance to go somewhere else in the world, you're going to and you drink Coca-Cola, maybe you've drank Coca-Cola, you're going to feel the difference between the Coca-Cola that we drink here, maybe the Coca-Cola that you can drink in the United States, and the Coca-Cola that you're going to drink, for example, in Europe. And of course, in the rest of the world, it's going to have some changes. The basic is the same, but sometimes in the sugar, it's going to be different. So it's global efficiency with local responsiveness because it's answering something special from the local customer, but it's the same product everywhere. The fourth talks about international strategy. This strategy involves exporting goods or services while maintaining operations primarily in the home country. It is often used by companies entering foreign markets for the first time, focusing on minimal adaptation. When we're going to start to export and to explore the international market. Of course, that we're going to maintain the operations in the home country, and we're going to start to export the goods or services somewhere else. But there is in this example is going to show us that it's not just for the small companies that are going to explore new customers in the world. But for example, Netflix uses subtitles and localized content to cater to diverse audience without significant infrastructure investments. So they're not going to move all the company or to get new buildings and places all over the world, because the service that they offer, they just have to customize a little bit with the customer. And what they do is to use subtitles and localized content, depending on the place where they're going to be. The fifth is related with global network strategy. This strategy builds a robust network of suppliers, distributors, and partners across borders, enabling companies to access new markets efficiently and respond to localized demands. In this case, we have Li and Fung, which is a Hong Kong-based supply chain management firm that leverages partnership globally to optimize production and distribution. So what they do is that they build a network of suppliers, distributors, and partners. They offer a service, and what they do is to help the other companies to access to new markets. But regarding the local demands. So it's like is someone that helps the companies to go abroad, that helps them with the contacts, what they need, and to go like directly to the market that they really are going to have an option to get into. The sixth is the global entrepreneur strategy. It's a proactive approach, focusing on identifying untapped opportunities and unmet customers' needs in foreign markets. It often involves innovation and leveraging regulatory or price arbitrage between countries. For example, we have Spotify that adapts its music streaming services to meet diverse market demands globally. The number 7 is the global investment strategy, the last one. And this strategy involves establishing a physical presence in foreign markets through investment like subsidiaries, joint ventures, or acquisitions. It helps the companies gain direct access to customers while benefiting from local resources or incentives. For example, Toyota builds manufacturing plants in various countries to reduce costs and cater directly to local demand. These strategies enable firms to compete effectively in international markets. They balance cost efficiency, the local adaptation, and innovation depending on the market dynamics and pressure. So those strategies, are adapted on depending on the type of business that you really want to have. If you want to export, you should start by the international strategy maybe, or the global entrepreneur strategy, because it depends on what you really want to do with the business that you want to get out of the country and to get into new markets. So you have to analyze exactly what's the short-term objective that you have to decide what of those strategies is the one that suits what you want to do. But always when we talk about international business, and if we look at the design of the program that you're studying now, it is focused on culture, on learning about different cultures, how important is the manage of different languages. Because at the end, when you have a product or a service, if you want to be successful with that, you really need to know the needs of the customers. You may have a really good product, you may have a really good service, but if you don't know what's the type of customer that that you want to offer your product, your business is not going to be successful. If you don't have the capabilities to learn about the other cultures, to understand the other cultures, if you don't have the capacity to communicate, and nowadays we have so many different tools to make the communication between different languages so easy, it is very important for you to consider to analyze what your capabilities are, because we really need to learn about the other markets. We really need to know about the profile of the customer. We really need to have clear what's going to be the short, medium, and long term objective of the company. What really what do we want to do with the product or the service? If we really want to go maybe just to one country, or if we want to go to a special region of the world. So we really need to know about the characteristics and all the features of our product or our service, but also we really need to learn about the other country, the other culture. We really need to manage different languages, at least English, to be able to communicate and to show some respect to the other cultures, to show them that we really care about what they prefer, what they want, what the customer is looking for. So those elements, if we go through every single thing that we've said this evening, it's very important to learn about the market that we want to get in, the customer that we want, the customer that we want to get, and to make the customer happy with our product or our service. That's really important to consider. We can have a really well designed strategy, we can have an excellent product, an excellent service, but if at the end we don't have what we really need, that is the knowledge of the country, the knowledge of the market, the knowledge of the customer, then we're going to fail in the process of the internationalization of the company, and the process that we're going to go through the international business that we want to do. So every single thing that you learn in the process of international business is related with internationalization and international elements that we have to consider when we want to sell a product or a service abroad. I would like to know if you have questions, if you have doubts, um, if it was clear what I was saying, if it's useful for what you're doing. Magis in transportation. Well, the most important is that everything that I say, that I share with you here, is useful for you, helps you with the activities, helps you to learn more about international business in different elements, in this case about international business management. And as I was saying, everything goes to the same elements of internationalization. Learn about the others, learn how the customers behave, what do they want. I don't know if Alvaro or Ariana have any questions, any doubts. I want to apologize for the interruptions, but I'm a single mother of a 3-year old girl. So I'm really sorry. Well, I see that
Yeah,
all of you or yes, Ariana.
no problem, tutor. Thank you for this space, the true career. Really, for this side, both for our training and for the development of the course, reflect on strategies such as competitiveness is key. The business career is a global expansion, is an effective plan so an international strategy is one of the most common approach that successful global companies use to achieve this. But for my formation and the development of the activity, it's important to recognize this this type of topics and the variety of factors who, who influence this environment. Really, thank you.
Thank you, Ariana. I really, really, really appreciate the time that you take for this type of web conference. I know that sometimes it's not easy because it's in another language. Um, I prefer to do it the whole in English because that's the idea. That's what the university offers you. I appreciate the effort that each of you do with your activities and your intervention in English. Congratulations. It was very clear what you were saying. And that's the idea that everything that we say is going to be useful for you for the process that you're doing. And of course, for the future process that you're going to have as a professionals of international business. So, anytime if you have any troubles, any doubts, if you want to get more information about these topics, feel free to contact me through Teams. Okay. Thank you very much for your time. I hope that it was useful again. And see you next web conference. Thank you, Ariana. Thank you, Alvaro. And thank you, Maggie. And have a good night. Bye bye.
Bye, teacher. Thank you. Thank you, tutor. So your knowledge is the greatest.